Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick. In this video we're going to be comparing the Adidas Adizero Evo SL and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. So this was a video that was requested by a few commenters when we did the comparison of the Evo SL with the Nike Zoom Fly 6. So certainly one we wanted to do. Two of my favourite running shoes out there, two really exceptionally versatile shoes that lean a bit more towards speed and take a slightly different approach with their designs, with the Endorphin Speed 4 being a plated shoe and the Adizero Evo SL being just having a little shank in there and generally going for a comfortable bouncy foam in a very lightweight design rather than using a full plate. The Evo SL is the cheaper shoe. It's £130 in the UK, $150 in the US, whereas the Endorphin Speed is £180 or $170. The Evo SL is also the lighter shoe. It's 224 grams or 7.9 ounces in the UK 9, whereas the Endorphin Speed 4 is 255 grams or 9 ounces in the UK 9. Evo SL has a 6mm drop with a stack height of 39mm at the heel, 33 at the forefoot, whereas the Endorphin Speed 4 is an 8mm drop, the stack height is 36mm at the heel, 32 at the forefoot. With the Evo SL, you've got a pretty minimal mesh upper with a little bit of padding around the back of the shoe and a pretty significant internal heel counter to add some structure there. You have a Light Strike Pro midsole foam. We believe this is the Light Strike Pro foam used on the Adios Pro 3 racing shoe rather than the slightly softer stuff used on the Pro 4, but still a pretty soft and springy foam all around for sure. And there's no full plate, but there is a little nylon shank around the midfoot to add some stiffness to that midsole. And then on the outsole, you have Continental rubber used on the forefoot and then two strips of Adidas's clear rubber at the back. With the Endorphin Speed 4, you've also got a nice mesh upper with a bit of padding around the back and on the tongue of the shoe. It's slightly more padded and slightly better tongue, I would say, than the one on the Adidas Evo SL. You've also got an internal heel counter there. I think it's a little bit softer and more flexible than the one on the Adidas. You've got a Power Run PB midsole, which is a PB midsole foam, two layers of that with a nylon plate in between that's winged at the sides to add a bit more stability. So nylon rather than a full carbon plate to be a little bit less stiff and more comfortable for general use. Then you have Saucony Speed Roll rocker on the shoe as well. You've also got a rocker on the Adidas, I should say. It's the very sharp forefoot rocker that's inspired by the design of the Pro Evo 1 racing shoe. And then with the Saucony, you've got a lattice rubber outsole, good forefoot coverage, two pretty big sections at the heel as well.
The fit for me in the Evo SL, I'm a size 8 in the UK, this is a size 8.5, and the reason for that is that I went to the shop where I bought this from in Dubai and I tried on a few different shoes. With Adidas shoes, you generally size up half a size in the UK anyway, because they do tend to be a little bit on the short side. Definitely the case for this. When I tried on the 8s, they were just a little bit too short for me, and I did need an 8.5 in this shoe. It's quite a roomy shoe as well. There's plenty of space around the sides of the foot for me. It doesn't feel like it's a restrictive shoe in the midfoot, but despite that, it's also very easy to get a nice lockdown fit in it. So very comfortable shoe, definitely size up to, does size up half a size like you normally would in an Adidas shoe. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, very comfortable shoe. I definitely get this in my UK size 8. There's plenty of space in the forefoot for me. It's got this lovely stretchy upper, which means that it is quite flexible, but you don't really need it. There's plenty of space in the upper. It's probably a little less roomy than the Speed 3 for me, but not a massive difference. It's still it's a very comfortable shoe, and definitely stays in my UK size 8 in it.
Onto the fit of the two shoes, this is going to be a slightly complicated one for me because I have got my normal UK 9 in both of these shoes, but I have also tested a UK 8.5 in the Saucony, and I think that fits me more akin to the fit of the Adidas. And the UK 8.5 in Saucony is a US 9.5, and with Adidas, the UK 9 is a US 9.5. So the US sizing is what's been the easiest one for me to get the right size on these shoes. I'd probably look at using that even if you're in the UK because Adidas and Saucony don't convert to the US sizes in exactly the same way. But the upshot is that I'm someone who's often in between two sizes, and I was happy in the smaller size of these two shoes, but I could also have been happier in the bigger size of these two shoes. So if you're someone who's big for your size, I would get maybe a half size up. If you're someone who's small for your size, I would go for that smaller size. So that's the way I'd look at it. They're both quite dialed in fit, I think it's fair to say. I'd be delighted if anything of what I just said was clear at all, but that's kind of the upshot of this section is if you're big for your size, I'd look at maybe going half size up. If you're small for your size, you're going to be okay. On to run test, and as I mentioned at the start of this video, I'm a big fan of both of these shoes. I think they're two absolute crackers. Two shoes I'd be very happy to have in my rotation. They'd be two shoes that would be very much be strong contenders for my rotation if I was building it from scratch again. They are speed-focused shoes, but really have the versatility of a daily trainer as well. So they can really do everything from your nice slow recovery runs to long runs, but then you can go down the track and run very fast in them and even race in them. They do have a different feel to them. The Speed 4 is the firmer shoe, and that's down to both the foam in the midsole, the Power Run PB, and the nylon plate in there. the foam is firmer than the stuff used on Adidas, and obviously the fact you have a plate in there just gives it a bit more stiffness and firmness underfoot. You get a very noticeable rocker effect from the speed roll geometry and that plate in there, and it does mean it has a really easy natural ride to it, the Speed 4, that just means I can tick over it at almost any pace. It feels very good for me running at speed. It really does feel like it has the pace of a true racing shoe with a carbon plate in it at times, and I've used it for flat out sessions where I normally would be picking up a carbon shoe even in training, and it's always performed really well. It has got a really nice softness at the heel of the shoe in particular for easy runs. I think the only time I think its firmness and stiffness becomes a bit uncomfortable for me is on longer hard runs, whereas as a heel striker I kind of snap through onto that plate and I just get a little bit of forefoot discomfort after a while with the Speed 4. Now, I don't get that really with the Evo SL because it's a higher stack shoe under the forefoot for one, but also there's no plate in there and the foam is softer. It's notably softer really, especially at the heel, but even as you roll through your whole foot strike, you've got a bouncier, softer feeling from the Evo SL. It's not as stiff, but the transition is still really, really good, and you've got that sharp forefoot rocker which just gives you that little bit of extra pop at the end of your strike there to move on and keep running fast. Again, I've done a really wide range of runs with this. Sometimes in those long, easy runs, I worry a little bit about stability with the Adidas Evo SL because it is soft and it's got a very narrow pinch point around the midfoot there, and even compared to the Endorphin Speed 4, which is not known for being especially stable, I think the Evo SL is a little bit more wobbly, but hasn't really been a problem, and I've really enjoyed it for fast runs. Like, it surprised me of how fast it is. Like, in general, having used plated shoes so much over the past few years for training and racing, even a shoe with just a small nylon shank, I have my doubts about going down and doing hard training sessions in, especially ones where I have to sustain fast paces on long tempos or long race pace, marathon race pace stints. But it's handled all of those really well. I think it is a genuinely very fast shoe and one that you could use for racing, and it's got such a nice, nimble, lightweight feel to it, which is quite different to lots of shoes out there these days, which are going for wider bases to add natural stability, which I don't really mind, but sometimes it is very nice to pick up a really thin shoe like this and get that real agile feel. So I did do a short run in both shoes at the same time, and the softness of the Adidas just really shone through there. Like, I do think the Speed 4 is pretty soft at the heel as a heel strike, and I do enjoy it there, but you get even softer ride with the Adidas. It's got a bouncier ride. The whole ride is a little bit more fun to it, I think, to have that sink in and bounce, because you do get softness, but it's not squishiness or softness that saps you at all. It really does rebound very nicely, and for a shoe without a full length plate, I do think the transition is really good and fast, and that rocker does mean it is fast. Got a stiffer feeling with the Endorphin Speed 4. Maybe if I was lining up like a half marathon race or something like that, it's probably the shoe that maybe have a bit of an edge with that natural rockered ride and extra boost you get from the plate over time in particular. But the Adidas doesn't feel like it's really lacking much on the speed front, I would say. It's one of the very few non-plated shoes, along with the Asics Superblast, that I do think works really well for those long sessions I do in things like marathon training, where I might be holding 4 or 5k blocks at decent paces for long spells, and it's then really fun and light for shorter intervals.
Okay, so these two shoes are comparable in the way that they are training shoes that are designed to be able to do a lot more, basically. But the difference is that there's a plate in the Speed 4, which I'm sure Nick has mentioned. Ultimately, the difference in these shoes really comes down to the ride. I've done quite a few runs in both of these shoes now. I've not used the Speed 4 for a while, actually. But the Evo SL really comes down to that midsole. You've got this big chunky Light Strike Pro midsole in there, and the ride that you get from it is quite different than what you get from the Speed 4. What I find from the Evo SL is that because of that foam, it's bouncy, it's got energy in it. The ride that you get from it when you're picking up the pace is very much about energy return. There's a nice little bit of bounce as you're running, and it just feels like a very enjoyable shoe to really pick up the pace in, and you can do a lot in it. You could do intervals in it, you could do tempo sessions in it. I think a lot of people could happily race in this, do a marathon in it, because it's just got a lot of cushioning in it, very comfortable to run in. But it really comes down to that midsole. That's where the magic is happening, and you're getting a nice energy full ride from the Evo SL. Now the Speed 4 does have it's a performance shoe. It's a really good performance shoe, really versatile performance shoe. But I think the magic of the Speed 4 really comes down to the combination of that plate with this slightly firmer midsole foam. So you get a little bit more of a nippy pickup with this shoe. I don't feel like I'm getting loads of bounce from the Speed 4, but it does feel like that plate is really sort of bringing me forward. And the effect is quite similar in both of them. You are getting a shoe that's comfortable, which really you can feel kicking into gear when you pick up the pace. But really, I think it just comes down to that midsole feel. For me, the Evo SL is probably much nicer for longer runs, where you just want a nice little bit of bounce, just enjoyably move along comfortably. The long runs that I've done in the Evo SL have been very, very nice. Very much enjoyed doing those. Shorter distances have been fine as well. And I also think that it's a pretty good easy day shoe. I've done a few easy runs in the shoe now, and I've absolutely had no issues with it. I like the softness of that foam. just works really well for me. A nice bit of energy return on an easy run for me. It doesn't have it really goes down well. The Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. It's a versatile shoe. I'm not as big a fan of it for easy runs. I like a softer foam when I'm doing easy runs. So it feels a little bit, it's not massively aggressive, but it does feel more aggressive than you get from the Evo SL. And I prefer bouncier shoes to responsive shoes anyway. So I think it really just comes down to that midsole. But I think both of them are fantastic shoes that you can use for the same sort of things. I think it really comes down to the sort of midsole that you want for your runs, and I like soft foam. The outsole on these, so the Speed 4 outsole, really, really good. Nice layer of rubber on the outsole. They're very good at gripping. There is quite a bit of exposed midsole, but the rubber's pretty good on it. So I think it'd take a while to rub down that rubber to start really making a dent in that midsole. But overall, really good outsole on that. Outsole on the Evo SL is a funny one because it has a similar outsole to the performance shoes, things like the Pro Evo, where you have like a very slight layer of rubber. So it has this continental rubber at the front, and it has this clear rubber at the back. Really surprised at how durable this rubber is and how grippy it is. I've used this running around where I live, where it's really wet and not very nice to run around at the moment, but it's absolutely fine. It's got really good grip on this, despite the fact there's no real tread in it. It does feel quite smooth. So really good outsole on that. And also, I haven't ripped off the back of the shoe, which I normally do with most shoes that have these sort of smaller rubber sections on the back. So really solid outsole on both of them. So my verdict on these two shoes, it's a tough one because I think they're really, really good shoes, both of them. And I think anybody who is doing high-level training, looking for shoes that can do daily training but really pick up the pace a little bit, would be happy with either of these shoes. I think it really comes down to your preference for the type of midsole you like. If you like soft, bouncy shoes, you definitely go for the Evo SL. My favourite shoe out of these two is the Evo SL by a long way because just works for my style of running. I just like that bit of energy when you're going out for a run. It just feels really nice on the legs. You could do longer run in it. It feels great. Speed 4, I've always thought it's a fantastic shoe, but for me, I've never been a massive fan of it. There's always been shoes that I preferred more, and it's mainly down to that midsole foam. It's a little bit firmer, maybe a little bit more responsive, and you can really feel that plate sometimes when you're running in it. Fantastic shoe for me if I'm doing intervals and stuff like that. But for me, it's not as versatile. I wouldn't use it for an easier run. I wouldn't use it for that many daily runs. I'd rather have a bit more softness in it. So for me, I'm going to go for the Adidas Evo SL all the way on this versus.
My verdict is I'm going to give this one to the Adidas Evo SL. It's just a shoe I enjoy running in more. It's certainly better value than the Endorphin Speed 4, and the performance is there as well. It's a very versatile and impressive daily trainer. Maybe there'll be some doubts about durability down the line, but after about 120k, the ride has only improved for me so far. It's just got a little bit more fun as the foam's broken in a little bit. There are maybe some caveats to this though. I do think the Endorphin Speed 4 would probably be the better shoe if you're looking for a stand-in racing shoe, especially for half marathon or marathon distance. You're not going to go and buy a full carbon shoe. Do think it's a little bit more stable than the Adidas as well, and some people will prefer the slightly more direct and stiff feel it has to the softer ride of the Adidas, which is also slightly higher stack as well, and like I say, a little bit wobbly on the inner side if you're going at slow paces, I think. But it's just a shoe that makes me look forward to. I always look forward to running. Running's like my favourite thing, but it's a shoe that I really look forward to running in. It's just a really fun daily trainer to use. It's fun, fast, can do lots of different runs, and it's great value. So yeah, I'd give this one to the Evo SL. Speed 4, undoubtedly an incredible shoe. Could you look at both shoes in a rotation? Yeah, you probably could, actually, because you'd have just two fantastic versatile shoes there. Speed 4 maybe be more of your racing shoe, maybe some of those long training sessions at harder paces, and then the Adidas Evo SL could pick up more of your daily training, but I think there's a lot of overlap here. I think the ideal rotation probably is to pick up something like one of these shoes with a carbon racer, and then maybe a more stable cushion shoe in a 3-shoe rotation that you could use for really slow stuff and long stuff. But yeah, both great shoes. I slightly prefer the Adidas Evo SL, and it's cheaper, so yeah, I'd pick that one out here myself. That's a comparison of the Adidas Evo SL and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.